Welcome to our Tools of Health Tuesday. This is a special week because we're going into Thanksgiving. And because it's Thanksgiving, our Tools of Health today is a little bit about gratitude. And I know it's been on the topic a lot, especially in social media. And I love that. I really do. I love being able to see what people are sharing and what they're grateful for, because gratitude and health go hand in hand. And today we're going to look at some of this connection of how gratitude affects your overall health and give you just a few tips for our happy Thanksgiving. We've got some special guests on. And to start off with, I'm going to share a little bit about what I'm grateful for. I have to share some of my little signs. This is one that I have in my front room. My greatest blessings, call me mom. And so, of course, I have to share my little sign of all my family because they are definitely what I'm very grateful for. And this year, I actually have all my kids together. It's amazing. We're going to have them all together for Christmas. Not necessarily at Thanksgiving, but we've have them all home actually for part of the holidays. So I'm very grateful for that. And I also have this I love this sign that I have hanging up in my kitchen. And it just says, gratitude turns what we have into enough. Because sometimes we feel like, oh, I want this, I want that, I want this. And so, but I feel like gratitude really kind of changes the whole mindset and turns it into something like, yeah, we have enough. We have everything that we really need. And everything else is, maybe some wants. So today I've asked Christine to join us because she has a book I've been looking over at our True Health Center. And we share a space there at True Health. And she's amazing. She's written these different books. She's focused on a lot of gratitude and Thanksgiving. She's written a book on it and has a gratitude journal that I thought was really impressive. And Christine, we had you on our show last week and you talked a little bit about it, but I enjoyed that so much. I wanted to get a little bit more in depth today. And I know that with your background too, you're a clinician and a quantum practitioner, and you've done a lot of actually mental health counseling in the past. So you've kind of seen how this can help change that mental, the connection, between your emotions, the mental well-being, and also the physical health. So she does train other practitioners in the area, and she has a free gift. So if you guys go to this gratitude one, this is a good time to get that gift. So I'm going to just bring Christine on, have her share her screen so she can talk to us a little bit about gratitude and how that affects. So Christine, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to turn it over to you.
You need to hear me. Okay. And you can see my screen okay?
Yep.
Make sure everything's out of the way. Okay. So this actually comes from a presentation I did a while back on blocks to gratitude. So we all hear about, we should be grateful and it's kind of a should for some of us who are stuck. And so this relates to the story I tell at the beginning of The Gift of Gratitude. And that is a book I wrote years ago after using an experiment, we'll call it, of journaling my gratitude for a full month. And it started November 1st. But just yesterday, for those who are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, our President Nelson came out with a challenge to have 7 days of gratitude. So you don't have to do a whole month. You can do 7 days. And then for those of us who are blocked, who it's like, it's just hard to feel that, I thought it's good to look at why. So I'm going to look at in my full presentation, I look at 4 areas. We probably won't get to all 4 today, but I want to get to at least the first one or 2. So chemical imbalance, dysthymia, and I'll explain what that is. And then people who deal with chronic pain or the overactive obsessive mind struggle sometimes. So, okay, so let's look at the top. Let's see if it'll go. Okay. 5 basic neurochemicals. So I don't know if you're familiar with this, but this is kind of a way I sort of summarized brain chemistry. And I began as a substance abuse counselor over 20 years ago. And I started looking at addictions and thinking, well, people choose a substance for a reason. And the reason they do is often because they have a chemical imbalance. They're overcompensating or they're self-medicating or they're finding something that is missing. And so those 5 areas include norepinephrine, which is like your typical caffeine, just a general stimulant to wake you up. GABA is something that people need more of to sleep. So it's the other end of the spectrum, and it allows for relaxation. And so GABA is mimicked by sleeping pills and anti-anxiety medications. And then serotonin, and lots of us like serotonin. We're learning a lot more about serotonin. It's the gut chemical. We can increase our serotonin levels with carbs, which is why people get hooked on food, because there's that feel good, after a big meal. They even say like L-tryptophan is a amino acid found in turkey. So Thanksgiving dinner increases serotonin because L-tryptophan is a building block of serotonin. So there's just a lot of, I think, and antidepressants are a way of increasing serotonin, but not naturally. Then beta endorphins, and we don't talk a lot about beta endorphins. That's the inner orphine, okay? So that's like a narcotic. Within the body, we have it naturally. It's released with exercise, which, we might want to talk more about at some point, because I know that both Janine and Tammy have some great ways to get your endorphins up, I'm sure, and other chemicals through exercise. But the endorphins are also mimicked by sugar. So carbs increase serotonin, but sugar increases the endorphins. And so the combination is, that's where you get your sugar highs, right, is the endorphins. And then dopamine is the chemical that's high intensity. So people that are kind of hooked on, skydiving, or they like amusement parks, or racing their car really fast, things that have kind of that extreme level of like impact in the body chemically are more like a dopamine. Okay, so there's a really quick overview. Now let's look at, we're just going to focus on serotonin for a minute, and depression. So especially in the fall and winter time, people tend to have their seasonal depression sometimes. And with events like we're dealing with, where we feel helpless and we're stuck in our homes, you can definitely see an increase in depression going on. So a normal serotonin level is going to go like a wave, whereas depression dips down in the mood spectrum, and usually will naturally come up over time, or that's why people get antidepressants, so it comes up through that intervention. But there's something else, and that is dysthymia. It's a different type of depression. So major depression dips down, and then hopefully comes back up to normal. But dysthymia is a curve or wave like serotonin, it's just lower. So this is what's called chronic or low-grade depression. So the dysthymia kind of way of living it goes on and on for years. A lot of times in the diagnostic manual, they say 2 years or more, that people are just kind of in this slump. And it can be a personality. It can be something that's happened since birth. Or young age. So I actually started a dysthymic pattern in childhood and had a really hard time ever coming out of it. And I talk about that in my Gift of Gratitude introduction. I explain that this had just been something that would come constantly almost, and especially in the winter and living in Cache Valley, it was worse. So the dysthymia you can also look at as like the Eeyore personality. And it's not so much the imbalance of serotonin, but actually the dopamine or endorphin levels that are out of balance. These respond to a different set of physical solutions, and those things can be diet. So a high protein diet will provide the amino acids for a neurochemical production, and then specific minerals will facilitate the transport. So when someone's chronic in a condition, a lot of times you've got to do a long-term solution, and the pharmaceuticals, that's not the long-term solution. So a long-term solution could be a long-term diet change. So for me, what that was going to a high protein diet with almost no grains. And as long as I stay on that diet, I am pretty much free of the dysthymia. For somebody else, it might be a little bit different. And there's some other things I found. 10 Ways to Balance Your Brain Chemistry is another book I released years ago, where I kind of put all these ideas together that I'd found over years of battling with this dysthymic depression. So okay, before we get to chronic pain, I just thought maybe we can just even talk about that, because it's an interesting topic, isn't it, to look at. What, have you heard of that before?
Chronic pain with
The dysthymia and chronic depression.
I hadn't actually heard of dysthymia. I'd always heard of Eeyore syndrome. And so
Eeyore syndrome, you have heard of that. Okay.
kind of encounter some different personalities. I would be like, oh, that's a Eeyore, and I hadn't actually realized that how much diet was involved with that, like the higher protein. I did know that certain, like Thanksgiving dinner, that release of serotonin from the tryptophan helps you feel better and sleepier and stuff, like taking a nap, but releases that serotonin level. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, and I'll go back to the screen. I found the slide next, but the interesting thing, the other thing I found is that meditation rather than medication were a solution. Oh. So it was several years ago that, I did a lot with nutritional solutions. And I've learned, there's a lot of people out there that work with energy, and I've done some emotional work, but I still would find myself just kind of going in that, reverting back to the pattern if I wasn't constantly working on things, trying to, like writing my gratitude journal or other things like that. And so what I found is that meditation in stillness and silence was really powerful, because it was able to get me to the root cause of where a lot of that was coming from. And for me, it was like a soul level thing. And, you can heal in layers. And so healing, the physiology is one layer. Healing the mind, it's really tricky, because the mind will take back over, because the ego is one of those elements of the mind. And the ego is actually very wrapped up in the dysthymic pattern. If you think about it, ego and personality, very closely associated. So the Eeyore personality is really kind of almost an ego structure. It's, this victim, constant sort of, I need, things I'm not being fulfilled. I'm not complete. I don't have, the endorphins, whatever. And so I felt, I think on a kind of deep level, like I was kind of a victim of that condition. So meditation was where I got to a deeper level of who am I, and what is this pattern about? Where does it come from? And so a lot of times people don't want to really go that deep. It's kind of frightening for a lot of people, because we don't know sometimes what we're going to find. We keep these doors in ourselves shut out of a way to cope, out of a way to, maybe a survival skill. And to open those doors up emotionally, or to look at things that are in the background of driving our behavior, is not the easiest. So meditation and stillness and silence is something that I use that full term, because meditation's kind of a catch-all right now. And what I find is that more than half the time when someone's talking about meditation, they're talking about something guided, where they have a voice outside of them that's guiding them through a process, or using affirmations or something to keep their mind occupied. So it's really different to be in your own, I guess, head and skin and space without any outside influence. And I don't know your experience with that. Have either of you tried that?
Yeah, I do enjoy meditation. Some guided, some on my own. I know when I went through my yoga, I did a Yoga Alliance 200-hour cert. We did different types of meditations with that too. And it's really interesting, but it's so helpful, and it's in overall health and mental health. So Tammy,
Yeah.
point here too. Go ahead and unmute, Tammy.
I meditate every morning. I started meditating when I first hooked up with my life coach over a year ago. And she was the one that actually got me to meditate, to start opening up those doors where I was stuck in. So I do a lot of self-guided every morning since September 27th of 2019.
And how's that helped you?
It has helped me immensely.
That's so cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Because I think when people evolve in their health and well-being, that's more common than those who are still struggling in that battle of, their willpower, their self-discipline, or their, back and forth patterns. So yeah, it allows us to be more centered, definitely, to do that. And then the other part of this presentation that I've gone into is the idea of mindfulness. So mindfulness and gratitude are very connected. The idea that if we're fully present in our moment right now, and it's a fun thing to just try. So just being fully present right here and now, and noticing the colors around you and dimensional, like if something's on the wall that stands out, that's 3D, or there's texture that you can see, and just using your eyes in a different way that way. But then closing your eyes and experiencing the sound as just sound, and not having to make sense of it, but just being with it. And then experiencing like the chair under you, and feeling your feet on the ground, and just the sense of noticing gravity that actually does hold you, and that it's has a force to it, and just feeling that. And then of course things like essential oils, and and adding, so there's so many different ways that we can access our sensory experience, and we don't have to eat to do it.
Right.
Right? So we can actually be so fulfilled really with so many different senses. And then when we're doing that, it can shift our experience with eating, so that we're more, I guess, more present with it, less in our habits, and less in the battle within ourselves.
Christine, do you find that at this meditation, like you're talking about, do you also go in and be present with your feelings and your emotions?
So, actually the training I do a 6-week course, and we do half of it is just to do the emotional work. Because if you aren't, if there's just a lot of emotion sitting there, you're going to avoid meditating. So we're more proactive about the emotional work, and that's the first half of the training. And then the second half of the training is learning the practice of quantum wholeness meditation, is the name of it, and allowing that full experience with meditation to take place, and then learning it in a way that it's incremental, so not quite bombarded with the experience, but easing into it, so the mind can handle that a little better. Usually.
And I find, as health coaching, and been health coaching for many years, that a lot of times people will use food to fill that emotional type void that they're having. So whether they're feeling a little depressed or anxious or even happy, they'll use food to kind of fill that, or fill a void that they're having. And so by going into and finding really the more of the root, then they realize they don't need the food to kind of fill that. They can go in and either meditate or find some other ways to kind of fill the void. And but it's easier. It is easier to turn to food to make you feel better, self-medication that way. And there is, especially right now, I mean, there's a lot of things that are causing anxiety, like you were saying, kind of depression. And we're seeing people gain weight through the COVID, either quarantine or just having some emotional issues type thing, where they are utilizing the food more to kind of maybe raise their serotonin levels, get out of anxiety.
It's also associated with scarcity.
Oh,
So we just did a training today, and that'll be up on amillionatone.com. So that's where I have a little community network of and topics and educational stuff. But earlier today we did a whole presentation on the relationship between scarcity and overeating, basically. That because when you start to go into like, I don't have enough,
Right.
even if it has nothing to do with food, but that's the thing, is that when we don't feel like we have enough in one area,
Like toilet paper, you know?
Well, yeah, or enough love or enough, financial
Mhm.
support or abundance. Then it's like it sits in our subconscious, I think. But the way that we mediate that or, console ourselves is through lots of food. We can get really full physically. And it seems to at least send a subconscious signal of like, oh no, you're not going to die.
Yeah.
Right. But then we end up going to that for our abundance and then we gain the weight. It's just a funny parallel, right? Empty wallet,
Yeah.
tighter belt kind of
Right.
thing. Yeah,
Really interesting. And
it
so how do
is.
you make this shift? Because especially with our call to 7 days of gratitude that we've had, I've noticed on myself, even as the last couple days, as I've noticed more and been more grateful for things that are around me, my thoughts have shifted. And so when a situation is more challenging to change it and be like, oh, for example, today when we did this turkey trot. And this is a recording. So we did turkey trot on Saturday. Um, we were required to wear masks and we couldn't all take off at the same time. There was a lot of things that had changed in the race. And as I got up there, I was thinking, I could either be really irritated by all of these things that are going on around me, or I could be very, very grateful that I'm even here, because that I health wise that I'm here, that I could be able to do this, because a lot of times health can hold you back from doing some of the things that you want. I'm grateful that they actually hosted the race today, because they could have easily have shut that thing down. And that they found a way to be able to include everybody that wanted to do it, and went through a lot of effort to follow all those precautions. So I ended up with that gratitude mentality, which made a much better race. I was focusing on being more present and enjoying the snow on the mountains, the crisp air, how beautiful it was around me. And it was like a moving meditation for me. It was almost like I came to the end and I was feeling, of course, I always get a little bit of a runner's high going. And so I felt so positive and so peaceful at the end of that I almost wanted to turn around and run that thing again. So that shift in mentality from gratitude into health, kind of share what you've seen takes place as we change those thoughts.
Well, definitely when, because that low grade depression is a lack of endorphins, if you can get your endorphins up, that will, that'll turn your chemistry around for hours, if not, more than a day. The trick is finding the motivation to go work out or get your endorphins up. And I see Tammy nodding. I want to hear from you. How do you fix that one? Because I'm working on that one.
The motivation to
Yeah.
get out and exercise. And there's an interesting thing about that, because motivation only takes you so far, and willpower only takes you so far. When you say, I have willpower not to eat this, or I have the willpower to go exercise, but the minute you start getting tired and fatigued and overwhelmed, that willpower goes out the window. So it comes down to not relying on willpower and motivation. It really comes down to just relying on schedule. You just put that in your schedule, and that's something that's non-negotiable, like going to work. So let's say, and sometimes we do call in sick to work, but we rarely do call in sick to work. We have that obligation to go to work and show up, right? So we show up for other people, but how often do we really show up for ourselves? So you have to have that obligation, that time thing. And so I have mine scheduled at a certain time. I just go and do it whether I want it to or not. And a lot of times I relate that to brushing my teeth. I do not love brushing my teeth. My daughter's a dental hygiene major. She loves teeth and brushing, but I don't. She's like, Mom, you need to floss more. You need to do this. But I do it anyway because I don't want my teeth to rot and fall out, right? So, and I do it in the morning and I do it at night. So exercise is kind of like that. Your body rots if you don't exercise. It's just science. It's what happens. And so if you don't want your body to rot, you just exercise. It's non-negotiable. You show up for it, you plan it, you do it. But don't rely on motivation and don't rely on willpower, because that's the first thing that goes out the window.
That is so true. I just started a cleanse yesterday. I decided I'm going to do it every day up until Thanksgiving. and that was, what I was told. I have a coach that's helped me with that. And she said, I have a sense that you got to put your exercise on your calendar, because it's almost easier for me to give up something than to push myself to have to, go into discomfort, get up that hill.
It is.
So, but yeah, that's what got me to do it, is putting it on my calendar every day what time I'm gonna go work.
Schedule it. It's not negotiable. It's a meeting with yourself. And so you just, and it's kind of building up that trust too. So that trust that you will follow through doing what you say that you're going to do for yourself and for others. And so Tammy, what's your suggestion on there?
Like Janine said, put it in your schedule it, because you won't unschedule an appointment with your boss. So you're the boss, and you put it in your schedule, and you're going to do that every day or whatever you're going to do. But what I do also is, if it's my running day, I have my running shoes and my running workout clothes right there. So the minute I wake up, they're right there. I probably would trip over my tennis shoes. And then if it's swimming day, I have my swimming bag right there. So the minute I wake up, it's just right there. I can't get around it.
Perfect.
Yeah,
There's important to have those triggers that remind you to do that habit and be prepared. So it's not, oh, I'm not really ready. I don't know where my clothes are. So when I get up in the morning and it's time to go to the gym, I usually lay my clothes out the morning before, because it's just hard to find things, and I'm trying not to wake people up, but it's just right there on the floor. You're absolutely right. It's ready to go. I can get up and I can just go. So being prepared helps. Putting those little triggers to exercise.
I will share something I learned from psychology, and it's called momentum. So the way that I use this as a school psychologist is that we would have students that just wouldn't do their work. They would just sit there all day and not lift a pencil. And so what we found is that asking them to do, to come up with a whole pile of worksheets by the end of the day was too much. But if we tracked them literally just sharpening their pencil and said, all right, go sharpen your pencil, and then rewarded them for that, then it was like, oh, well, now I could maybe fill out one item on my worksheet. And then, and then there's a little reinforcement for that. So momentum is the idea that you just do that little thing, like putting the shoes on. I realized that's my first step. And, and if I can just get my running shoes on, I am more likely to then put on my coat, which you have to do now, and then get out there. So yeah, momentum is good.
That is perfect. I love that idea of momentum, and it does, and it gets your momentum going in the right direction, even if it's something small. And then once you start getting the momentum, it starts turning into a habit. And so it's something you don't have to decide on anymore. It's just that habit. If you have to decide on whether or not you're going to go, then often other things like I'm too busy, I'm too tired, everything else will go in. But if you don't have to decide, it's already a habit. It's built into your schedule. You go and do it, then it makes it so much easier. And you have that momentum going, and you're starting to feel good. You're starting that mental health aspect. So you kind of get a little bit more addicted to that feel good feeling of more serotonin, not serotonin, but the epinephrine.
Yeah, the endorphins. A little bit. If you can get into that runner's high, that's starting to go into the dopamine. So, yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing. And one way that we found to trick it is we've talked about our BFR training, but we're able to put our bands on and do a little BFR training to kind of get into a deeper fatigue exercise by doing something really light for a short amount of time. And that really helps, but it also gets you that runner's high during the day. So that does get a little addicting, and so something that I make sure I always want to do in the morning so that I feel so good during the day, and being able to do it without running, because not everybody can run, not everybody can get that runner's high. And so this provides an option and a way to do it. And as we kind of get into some of our tips for this Thanksgiving, that's a good thing to do. I think as we come and we're preparing or going into a big meal, And we're thinking, okay, I've already put on 19 pounds during COVID-19. Do I want to put on another 19? No, I won't put on that much. It's just, but one thing to remember, it's just a meal. You know, it is just a meal, and we've had it before. We're going to have it again. And so if your focus is on your health this year, if this is something that you want to go into, there's some things that you can do. And having a strategy as you go in is a good idea. And so if you're kind of going in, this is your holiday Thanksgiving tip. Decide whether you're not going to be one, you're just going to go completely off the bandwagon and you're just going to go hog wild and eat the thing and then, you know, be done with it and continue on. Or you can say, you know what, I'm going to just eat moderation, small amounts. And right after Thanksgiving, I'm going to go right back to my eating plan. Or number 3, you can stay on your eating plan and find ways to enjoy that meal by eating some of definitely the healthier choices. So for us, that might look like going in and saying, okay, I'm going to stay on my plan, my eating plan. So Christine, for your higher protein, it might be going in and focusing on the turkey, you know, and filling up your plate with more turkey and vegetables, and then eating smaller amounts of some of the other foods, because you know that if you eat maybe some of those grains and different things, that might throw you into more of a slump. And that's what happens a lot of times, is as people go off, if they're eating a ton of sugar and carbs, kind of throws them into a slump. But a couple things that if you decide that's what you're going to do, and that's okay, just get right back on and don't beat yourself up. But one thing that I really do like to encourage people to do as they go into their Thanksgiving is, instead of making it all about the food, make it about the people. Make it about and showing gratitude, and like you were talking about, being present with them, you know, but really talking to them, enjoying their company, because sometimes, especially now, it's harder to get together. And so if you are together as a family, and that's what it's really all about, is that family environment, just enjoying being with the people that you love and focusing on the things that you're so grateful for. One thing that my husband's family has a tradition, as they sit down, they go around and they say what they're grateful for before they can all eat. And sometimes you're sitting there, okay, let's shorten that up. You know, we're anxious for the turkey, but I thought, what a great tradition to go in and just focus on other things besides the food. And so as we go into this Thanksgiving season, I hope that you all can find the things that you're so grateful for and share that with other people. Be more present, and maybe implement some of these things that we've learned today from Christine, which I really appreciate. Some of the things like doing some meditation or helping to lift ourselves up. I found that it's really difficult to lift others if we can't lift ourselves. And being able to help others. And as a lot of times people that are on here, I mean, we're mothers, fathers, people that may be working in a job where we help others. So we have to remember that we have to take care of ourselves first and be able to fill our own cup so that we can help fill others and lift them up too. So Christine, any words of wisdom before we go?
Those are all, you had the words of wisdom right there. It up.
You did so good. Thank you so much for joining. I think Tammy dropped off, but thank you. And we did have a recording today as I'll be heading out, so we won't be asking any live questions, but join us next week on our Tools of Health. And thank you for joining us today. We hope you have a happy, healthy holiday and have a wonderful week.
Thank you.